Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, watching as red warning lights flashed across every console. The ship's communication officer, Lieutenant Amy Carter, looked up from her station with wide eyes. "Captain, we're receiving signals on all frequencies. It's not just us. Every ship, every station, every colony is getting the same transmission." Jake walked over to the main screen as the alien message began to play. The voice was cold and mechanical, speaking perfect English through some kind of translation device. "People of Earth and its colonies, we are the Zelthani Collective. We represent 12 advanced species who have been watching your kind for many years. We have seen your wars, your violence, and your suffering. We cannot allow this to continue." The screen showed massive alien ships, each one larger than any human vessel ever built. They moved slowly through space like giant metal whales, their hulls covered in strange patterns that seemed to glow with inner light. "Your species is young and dangerous to itself. You fight over resources, destroy your environment, and cause each other endless pain. This must end. We offer you protection under our guidance. You will surrender all military vessels and weapons. Your leaders will step down. We will take care of you as we have taken care of many other species." Jake felt his hands clench into fists. The alien voice continued without emotion. "You have 48 hours to comply. If you refuse, we will be forced to remove the threat you pose to yourselves and others. This is not negotiation. This is mercy." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Jake looked around at his crew. Some looked scared, others angry. All of them were waiting for him to say something. "Get me Admiral Kane," Jake said quietly. Within minutes, Admiral Lisa Kane's face appeared on the screen. She was in the command center on Earth, surrounded by officers and government officials. Her expression was hard as stone. "Jake, I assume you got the message. Every human settlement in space received it at the same time. These aliens have been planning this for a while. What are our orders, Admiral?" "Stand by. We're calling an emergency meeting with all government leaders and military commanders. Dr. Peter Hayes is here with his xenopsychology team. They've been studying the alien signals." Dr. Hayes stepped into view. He was a thin man with gray hair who had spent his life studying the possibility of alien contact. "Captain Morrison, these beings have been watching us for decades. They think they understand us, but they're wrong about one important thing." "What's that, Doctor?" "They believe humans are weak. They've seen our conflicts and problems and decided we're a species that breaks under pressure. They expect us to panic, to beg for mercy, to surrender without a fight." Jake felt a cold smile cross his face. "Are we going to prove them wrong?" Admiral Kane nodded. "We're going to show them exactly what humans do when someone threatens our freedom. But first, we need to know what we're facing." The Admiral turned to her intelligence officer. "Commander Roberts, what do we know about their fleet?" "Long-range sensors show approximately 3,000 ships positioned just beyond the asteroid belt. Their smallest vessels are twice the size of our largest battleships. Their technology appears to be centuries ahead of ours in terms of energy weapons and defensive shields. Conventional wisdom says we don't stand a chance," Admiral Kane said. "But conventional wisdom has been wrong about humans before." Across human space, the reaction to the alien ultimatum was not what the Zelthani expected. On Mars, engineer Sophie Clark looked up from her work in the shipyards as the message played over the facility's speakers. Around her, hundreds of workers had stopped what they were doing to listen. When the transmission ended, Sophie's supervisor, Mike Turner, climbed onto a work platform where everyone could see him. "You all heard what they said," Mike called out. "They think we're going to roll over and surrender. They think humans are weak." He paused, looking at the faces around him. "Anyone here feel like proving them wrong?" The roar of approval from the workers could be heard throughout the shipyard. Within minutes, Sophie was pulling up blueprints for converting civilian cargo haulers into weapons platforms. On the mining colonies around Jupiter, former Marine Sergeant Danny Walsh was organizing civilian defense groups. Most of the colonists had never held a weapon in their lives, but they were learning fast. "The aliens don't understand us," Danny told a group of factory workers. "They see our emotions and think that makes us weak. They don't realize that the same feelings that make us cry also make us fight." At the Lunar Research Facility, Dr. Kate Bishop was working with her team on a project that had seemed like pure science just hours ago. Now it might be humanity's secret weapon. "If we can get the quantum communication network online," she explained to her assistant, "we can coordinate our forces across light years instantly. The aliens won't expect that level of organization from a primitive species." Back on the UES Liberty, Jake received new orders from Admiral Kane. All ships are to maintain normal patrol patterns. Do not engage alien vessels unless fired upon, but be ready for anything. Understood, Admiral. What about civilian evacuations? There won't be any, Kane replied firmly. Every human settlement, every ship, every station is staying exactly where it is. We're not running from this fight. As the hours passed, the aliens monitored human communications and felt satisfied with what they saw. The humans appeared to be in chaos. Ships were moving frantically between stations. There was increased chatter on all communication channels. Large groups of people were gathering in public spaces. Ambassador Veltar of the Zelthani reviewed the reports with his advisors. The humans are reacting exactly as predicted. They are panicking, trying to evacuate their populations, calling emergency meetings. Their emotional response is making them irrational. Should we offer them additional time to surrender? Asked one of his subordinates. No, Veltar replied. Extending the deadline would only cause them more suffering. It is better to end this quickly and begin their rehabilitation under our guidance. What the aliens didn't realize was that the chaos they were observing was actually the largest coordinated military mobilization in human history. Every ship movement was planned. Every gathering was a strategic meeting. Every communication was part of a growing network of resistance. As the 48-hour deadline approached, humanity was not preparing to surrender. They were preparing for war. The aliens had made a simple mistake. They had confused human emotion with human weakness. They were about to learn the difference. Lieutenant Commander Alex Rivera stood in the hangar bay of the UES Vanguard, watching his crew prepare the stealth frigate for what might be their last mission. The ship was small compared to the alien vessels, but it had one advantage the enemy didn't know about. It could move through space almost invisible to their sensors. Rivera, you have new orders, came the voice of Captain Helen Brooks over the comm system. Take your ship to the asteroid belt. Stay hidden and wait for the signal. What signal, Captain? You'll know it when you see it, Alex nodded to his crew. They were all volunteers, all people who had chosen to fight instead of hide. His navigator, Sergeant Lucy Evans, was a former pilot who had flown supply missions to the outer colonies. His weapons officer, Corporal Tim Foster, had been working on experimental torpedo designs for the past year. Take us out, Alex ordered, silent running from the moment we clear the station. As the Vanguard slipped away into space, similar scenes were playing out across human territory. On Mars, Sophie Clark had barely slept in the past 36 hours. The shipyard workers had transformed 12 cargo haulers into floating weapons platforms. They looked like ordinary freight ships from the outside, but hidden beneath their cargo bay doors were mining lasers powerful enough to cut through asteroid rock. These lasers weren't designed as weapons, Sophie explained to Mike Turner as they watched the final modifications being installed. But they don't need to be. Any tool that can cut through solid rock can cut through alien ship hulls. Mike smiled grimly. Think the aliens know about industrial equipment being used as weapons? I doubt it. They probably think weapons have to look like weapons. On Earth, Danny Walsh was finishing a training session with a group of civilians who had volunteered to defend their city. Most of them were office workers, teachers, and shop owners who had never imagined they would need to fight for their freedom. Remember, Danny told them, you don't need to be soldiers to make a difference. You just need to be willing to stand up when someone tries to take away your choice. A woman named Carol Jensen raised her hand. She managed a small factory that made electronic components. What if we can't win? What if they're too strong? Danny looked at her seriously. Carol, winning isn't just about destroying the enemy. Sometimes winning means showing them that we won't break no matter what they do to us. Sometimes the act of fighting is more important than the outcome. At the Lunar Research Facility, Dr. Kate Bishop was putting the finishing touches on the quantum communication network. Her team had worked non-stop to create a system that would allow instant communication across any distance. The theory is simple, she explained to her assistant, Dr. Paul Martinez. Quantum entanglement means that information can be shared instantly between particles no matter how far apart they are. If we can establish quantum links between all our ships and stations, we can coordinate our entire defense in real time. The aliens won't expect this level of coordination from us, Paul said. That's exactly what we're counting on. They think humans are too emotional and chaotic to work together effectively. They're about to learn otherwise. The network came online just as the deadline entered its final 12 hours. Suddenly, every human commander, every ship captain, every station manager was connected. Information flowed instantly between Earth and the furthest colonies. Plans that had been developed separately could now be coordinated perfectly. Admiral Kane used the new system to address all human forces simultaneously. Her voice reached every corner of human space at the same moment. This is Admiral Kane to all human forces. In a few hours, the aliens expect us to surrender. They believe we are weak because we feel emotions. They think our feelings make us irrational. They are wrong. She paused, letting her words sink in across dozens of worlds and hundreds of ships. Our emotions don't make us weak. They make us human. They make us care about freedom. They make us willing to fight for what we believe in. And they make us absolutely unwilling to kneel before anyone who thinks they know what's best for us. On the bridge of the UES Liberty, Captain Jake Morrison received his final orders. The ship would lead the first wave of the human response. It was a suicide mission and everyone knew it. "Captain," said Lieutenant Amy Carter, "long-range sensors show the alien fleet is moving toward Earth. They'll be in weapons range in 4 hours." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. They were scared, he could see it in their eyes. But they were also determined. They had chosen to be here. "All hands, this is the captain," Jake announced over the ship's communication system. "In a few hours, we're going to show these aliens something they don't expect. We're going to show them that humans don't surrender. We don't give up. And we don't let anyone else decide our fate for us." Meanwhile, the Zelthani fleet approached Earth with confidence. Ambassador Veltar reviewed the latest intelligence reports with satisfaction. "The humans continue to behave exactly as predicted," he told his staff. "Their communications show increasing panic. Their ships are moving randomly. Their leaders are making desperate speeches to try to maintain morale." "What about the increased activity around their industrial facilities?" asked his intelligence officer. "Typical human behavior when facing stress. They engage in pointless busy work to distract themselves from reality. It is actually a positive sign. It shows they are accepting the inevitable." What the aliens didn't realize was that the pointless busy work had just finished arming every human settlement with improvised weapons. The random ship movements had positioned defensive forces throughout the solar system. The desperate speeches had been coordination signals for the largest military operation in human history. As the final hours ticked away, both sides prepared for what was coming. The aliens expected to find a broken species ready to surrender. The humans were preparing to show them exactly what happened when someone threatened human freedom. Dr. Hayes transmitted one final message to the approaching alien fleet. "Ambassador Veltar, you have studied humanity for decades, but you missed our most important characteristic. You saw our conflicts and our struggles and thought they made us weak. You were wrong. Our struggles made us strong. Our conflicts taught us how to fight, and our emotions give us something worth fighting for." The response from the aliens was predictable. "Dr. Hayes, your species will be much happier once you learn to accept guidance from those wiser than yourselves. Resistance will only cause unnecessary suffering." "Maybe," Hayes replied, "but the choice to resist is ours to make, and we choose to fight." The Zelthani fleet arrived at Earth exactly on schedule. 3,000 ships moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with an almost religious confidence. Ambassador Veltar stood on the bridge of the flagship, expecting to receive humanity's surrender at any moment. Instead, he received something else entirely. Unknown alien vessels. "This is Admiral Lisa Kane of the United Earth Forces. You have entered human space without permission and threatened our people. You have exactly 60 seconds to begin withdrawing, or we will consider your presence an act of war." Veltar was so surprised he actually laughed. "Admiral Kane, surely you understand the situation. Our fleet numbers in the thousands. Your entire military could not possibly pose a threat to us." "You're right about one thing," Kane replied. "You don't understand the situation at all." At that moment, every human ship in the solar system powered up their weapons simultaneously. The UES Liberty, under Captain Jake Morrison's command, led the charge directly toward the center of the alien formation. "All ships, this is Morrison. Remember, we're not trying to win this battle. We're trying to start a war." The Liberty was vastly outgunned and outnumbered. The alien ships opened fire with energy weapons that lit up space like a deadly light show. Morrison's ship took hit after hit, its shields failing and hull plating burning away. But before the Liberty died, it accomplished its mission, A spread of kinetic projectiles launched from its torpedo tubes. Simple chunks of metal accelerated to incredible speeds. The aliens had expected sophisticated missiles and were unprepared for basic physics. Two Zelthani cruisers found their shields useless against solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. What was that? Veltar demanded as his sensor showed two of his ships disabled. Kinetic kill vehicles, his weapons officer reported. Simple metal projectiles. Our shields are designed to stop energy weapons and guided missiles, not solid matter moving at those velocities. Before Veltar could respond, space around his fleet erupted in chaos. From hidden positions throughout the asteroid belt, human ships appeared as if from nowhere. Commander Alex Rivera's stealth frigate Vanguard was among them, along with dozens of similar vessels that had been waiting in silence. Vanguard to all stealth units, Rivera transmitted. Hit their supply ships first. Make them worry about logistics. The stealth ships struck like ghosts, appearing long enough to fire their weapons before vanishing back into the asteroid field. They weren't trying to win a direct fight. They were trying to force the aliens to split their attention. At the same time, Sophie Clark's converted cargo haulers revealed themselves. They had been drifting among the regular space traffic, looking like ordinary freight vessels. Now their hidden cargo bay doors opened to reveal industrial mining lasers. Clark to all industrial units. Sophie broadcast. Target their engine sections. These lasers are designed to cut through solid rock. Let's see how alien metal compares. The mining lasers fired in coordinated beams. They weren't military weapons, but they didn't need to be. The focused energy that could slice through asteroids cut into alien hulls like knives through paper. Veltar watched in growing alarm as his orderly formation dissolved into chaos. How are they coordinating these attacks? Their communications should be too slow for this level of precision. His answer came from Dr. Kate Bishop's quantum communication network. Every human ship, no matter how far apart, was connected instantly. When a stealth ship spotted a target, every other ship knew about it immediately. When a mining laser found a weak point in alien armor, every other weapon could focus on the same spot. The aliens had superior technology, but they had never faced an enemy that could think and react as a single organism across light years of space. On Earth, Danny Walsh's civilian militia groups were monitoring the battle and preparing for the next phase. If any alien ships made it through the outer defenses, they would find that every human settlement was ready to fight. Remember, Danny told his volunteers, we're not just defending our homes. We're showing the galaxy that humans don't surrender. Every shot we fire, every stand we make, sends a message that freedom is worth fighting for. Carol Jensen, the factory manager who had asked about winning, was now commanding a group of workers who had turned their manufacturing facility into a fortress. They had industrial equipment that could be weaponized and the knowledge to use it effectively. The aliens think we're weak because we're not soldiers, Carol told her team. They're about to learn that every human can be a soldier when their freedom is threatened. The battle raged for hours. Human losses were enormous. Ship after ship disappeared in flashes of light as alien weapons found their targets. But for every human vessel destroyed, alien ships were damaged or disabled. The Zelthani had expected easy victory, not a grinding fight that cost them resources and time. Admiral Kane coordinated the defense from her command center, using the quantum network to direct forces across the entire solar system. All units maintain hit-and-run tactics. We're not trying to destroy their entire fleet. We're trying to prove we can hurt them. The psychological impact on the aliens was as important as the physical damage. The Zelthani had conquered dozens of species, but always against enemies who fought conventionally. They had never faced an opponent that turned civilian infrastructure into weapons, that coordinated across impossible distances, that seemed to view every loss as a reason to fight harder rather than surrender. Ambassador, his tactical officer reported, we're taking unexpected casualties. Their weapons are primitive but effective. More importantly, they're fighting with a level of coordination that our model said was impossible for their species. Veltar studied the tactical display. Every human attack was perfectly timed with every other human attack. Their inferior technology was being used with tactical brilliance that his own strategist couldn't match. Send a message to their Admiral Kane, he ordered. Offer her terms for surrender. Limited autonomy for human colonies in exchange for ending this resistance. Kane's response was immediate and broadcast on all frequencies. Ambassador Veltar, You made one critical error in your analysis of humanity. You assumed that because we feel emotion, we can't think strategically. You assumed that because we sometimes fight among ourselves, we can't unite against a common threat. You assumed that because we value life, we won't sacrifice it for freedom. She paused, letting her words reach both her own forces and the alien fleet. You were wrong on all counts. We feel emotion, and that emotion tells us that freedom is worth any price. We fight among ourselves because we believe in the right to disagree, and we value life so much that we're willing to die rather than live as slaves. The battle continued, but something had changed. The aliens were no longer advancing confidently toward Earth. They were fighting defensively, trying to understand an enemy that defied everything they thought they knew about warfare and psychology. For the first time since they had issued their ultimatum, the Zelthani collective was beginning to doubt their ability to easily subdue humanity. The war had spread beyond Earth's solar system within days. At Proxima Centauri, Colonel Ben Parker stood on the command deck of the Orbital Defense Station, watching alien ships approach his colony. The Zelthani had expected to find desperate refugees begging for protection. Instead, they found a fortress. "Colonel, enemy fleet is entering weapons range," reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Sarah Bell. Ben nodded. The Proxima colonists had been preparing for this moment longer than anyone else. Living 4 light-years from Earth, they had always known they would be on their own if trouble came. That knowledge had made them strong. "All defensive positions, this is Parker. Remember, we've survived everything this planet could throw at us. Solar flares, asteroid impacts, equipment failures that should have killed us all. These aliens are just another environmental hazard." The colony's defenses opened fire. What the aliens saw looked like a standard mining operation. Orbital platforms, industrial equipment, transport ships. What they didn't realize was that every piece of equipment had been designed to double as a weapon. The mining platforms used their excavation charges as missiles. The transport ships revealed hidden armor, and converted cargo haulers became missile boats. The industrial lasers that normally carved up asteroids for raw materials turned their focused beams on alien hulls. "Sir," Lieutenant Bell reported, "the aliens are requesting communication." "Put them through." The alien commander's voice was filled with confusion. "Human colony, why do you resist? We offer you protection and peace. Your weapons are inferior. Your position is hopeless," Ben smiled grimly. "Commander, you don't understand what you're fighting. You're not fighting soldiers or warriors. You're fighting colonists. Do you know what that means?" "Explain." "It means we're people who left everything we knew to build something new in the most dangerous places we could find. It means we've spent generations learning that the universe doesn't care if we live or die, so we'd better care enough for all of us. It means we don't surrender because surrender isn't an option when there's nowhere to run." The alien attack continued, but with less confidence. Every Zelthani ship that was damaged or destroyed proved Colonel Parker's point. The humans weren't fighting like a military force. They were fighting like people defending their homes, and there was a desperate creativity in their tactics that no military manual could teach. Meanwhile, at a Zelthani detention facility in the outer asteroid belt, Dr. Marcus Ford was having a very different conversation with Ambassador Veltar. Marcus had been captured when his research ship was disabled during the early fighting, and the aliens had hoped to learn more about human psychology by studying him. "Dr. Ford," Veltar said, "your species continues to resist despite overwhelming odds. Our analysis suggested that humans would surrender once they understood the futility of resistance. Instead, they fight harder. Why?" Marcus looked at his captor with something approaching pity. "Ambassador, your entire understanding of humanity is based on a fundamental error. You think our emotions make us weak. You think feeling fear means we'll run away. Feeling sadness means we'll give up. Feeling anger means we'll make mistakes. These are logical conclusions. No, they're not. Fear makes us careful. Sadness makes us remember what we're fighting for. Anger gives us strength. But most importantly, love makes us willing to sacrifice everything for the people we care about." Veltar's expression showed confusion. "Love is an inefficient emotion. It causes irrational behavior." "Maybe," Marcus agreed. "But it also causes impossible behavior. Love makes parents lift cars off their children. It makes soldiers charge machine gun nests to save their friends. It makes ordinary people do extraordinary things. You can't predict love with logic, Ambassador. That's why you're losing this war." Back on Earth, Carol Jensen was proving Marcus's point. Her small factory had become the center of resistance for her entire city district. The workers had used their knowledge of electronics and manufacturing to create improvised weapons and defensive systems. "Mrs. Jensen," said Tom Bradley, one of her employees, "the aliens are broadcasting surrender demands every hour. They're promising that civilians won't be harmed if we stop fighting." Carol looked around at the faces of her workers. These were people who had built their lives around creating things, not destroying them, but they had adapted to the situation with typical human flexibility. "Tom, do you believe them?" "I don't know. Maybe they mean it. Maybe they do. But here's the thing. Even if they keep their promise, even if they treat us well, we'll still be prisoners. We'll be pets. We'll be children who need someone else to make our decisions for us." She paused. "Is that the kind of life you want to leave to your kids?" Tom shook his head. "No, it isn't. Then we keep fighting." The conversation was interrupted by an alert from their lookouts. A small group of alien soldiers was approaching the factory. Carol's people took their positions with the calm efficiency of people who had been preparing for this moment. The aliens expected frightened civilians. Instead, they found coordinated resistance from people who knew every inch of their territory. Industrial equipment became weapons. Manufacturing knowledge became tactical advantage. And the simple human refusal to surrender became an insurmountable obstacle. At the same time, in the command centers of the Zelthani fleet, the alien leadership was struggling to understand what they were facing. Every psychological model they had of humanity was proving wrong. "The humans are coordinating their resistance across their entire species," reported the Zelthani intelligence chief. "They're using some kind of instantaneous communication system that we cannot intercept or disrupt." "How is this possible?" demanded the fleet commander. "Our studies showed that humans were too individualistic to achieve this level of cooperation." "Our studies were incorrect. The humans are capable of both fierce individualism and complete unity, depending on the circumstances. When threatened, they become a single organism dedicated to survival." Ambassador Veltar received these reports with growing concern. The collective had conquered dozens of species, but they had always faced enemies who fought the way the Zelthani themselves would fight, with military formations, conventional tactics, and rational responses to overwhelming force. Humans didn't fight rationally. They fought emotionally, and emotion made them unpredictable. They used civilian infrastructure as military assets. They turned individual creativity into collective strength. They treated every battle as if the survival of their entire species depended on it. "Ambassador," his aide reported, "we're receiving reports from all fronts. Human resistance is stronger than anticipated. Our casualties are mounting. What do our psychological profiles suggest for breaking their will to fight?" "The profiles are useless. Human behavior doesn't match any of our models. They become stronger under pressure, not weaker. They fight harder when they're losing, not softer. They seem to treat defeat as motivation rather than discouragement." Veltar stared at the tactical displays showing human and alien positions throughout the solar system. Red markers indicated destroyed ships and installations on both sides, but the pattern wasn't what he had expected. The humans were losing more assets, but they were also inflicting more damage than should have been possible. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "we underestimated the value of irrationality in warfare." His aide looked confused. "Sir, rational beings can be predicted. Their responses can be calculated. But beings who fight for emotional rather than logical reasons, they're capable of actions that our strategies cannot anticipate." As if to prove his point, reports began coming in of a new human tactic. Civilian volunteers were piloting damaged ships on collision courses with alien vessels. It was tactically inefficient and strategically wasteful. But it was also completely unpredictable and absolutely terrifying to an enemy that valued logic above all else. The war was far from over, but something fundamental had changed. The Zelthani were no longer fighting to liberate an inferior species. They were fighting for their lives against an enemy they finally understood they had never understood at all. 6 months after the first battle, the true scope of human preparation became clear. Admiral Lisa Kane stood in the command center watching displays that showed the positions of human and alien forces across dozens of star systems. What had started as a desperate defense of Earth had become the largest coordinated military campaign in galactic history. "Admiral," reported her intelligence officer, Commander Janet Price. Long-range sensors detect the Zelthani home fleet approaching. It's their largest force yet, over 5,000 ships. Kane nodded. This was the moment they had been preparing for. The aliens were finally committing their full military might to end the human resistance once and for all. Signal all units. Operation Final Stand is now active. Across human space, ships that had been hidden for months began to move. The Zelthani had been fighting what they thought was humanity's entire military force. They had no idea that the real war machine had been building and preparing in secret. Captain Ruth Blake commanded the carrier group that emerged from behind Jupiter's moons. Her ships had been disguised as mining vessels and research stations, but they were actually mobile weapons platforms carrying experimental fighters designed specifically to counter Zelthani technology. Blake to all carrier groups, she transmitted. Launch all fighters. Show them what human ingenuity looks like when we have time to prepare. The fighters that poured from her ships were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. They were small, fast, and carried weapons that seemed to violate the laws of physics. Dr. Kate Bishop's quantum communication network had allowed human scientists to share discoveries instantly, creating technological advances that would have taken decades under normal circumstances. At the same time, Colonel Ben Parker led the combined colonial fleets from the outer settlements. These weren't the desperate defenders the aliens had faced at Proxima Centauri. These were seasoned fighters who had spent months learning alien tactics and developing countermeasures. All colonial units, this is Parker. Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves anymore. We're fighting for the right of every species in the galaxy to choose their own destiny. The Zelthani home fleet arrived expecting to face the same scattered resistance they had been fighting for months. Instead, they found themselves surrounded by a coordinated human force that had used their own faster-than-light travel routes against them. Dr. Bishop's quantum network had allowed Admiral Kane to predict the aliens' movements with perfect accuracy. Human forces had been positioned along every approach route, turning the Zelthani's tactical advantage into a trap. Admiral Kane to the Zelthani fleet. She broadcast on all frequencies. Welcome to our solar system. We've been expecting you. Ambassador Veltar stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at tactical displays that showed his fleet surrounded by human vessels. It wasn't possible. The humans didn't have this many ships. They didn't have this level of coordination. They couldn't have predicted his fleet's movements. How? He demanded of his staff. How are they doing this? His intelligence chief looked at the data with growing understanding. Ambassador, I believe we have been fighting a delaying action. The humans we faced in the early battles weren't their main force. They were buying time for this. This what? This fleet. This coordination. This level of technological integration. The humans have been preparing for this war longer than we realized. The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. The Zelthani had superior individual ships, but the humans fought as a single organism. Every human vessel knew exactly where every other human vessel was. Every tactic was coordinated across light years of space. Every sacrifice was calculated to maximum effect. Carol Jensen, now commanding the civilian defense forces of her entire planet, watched the space battle from her command center. Her factory workers had become soldiers, her managers had become tacticians, and her small industrial facility had become the heart of planetary resistance. Mrs. Jensen, reported her aide, the alien ground forces are landing in Sector 7. They're requesting our surrender. Carol smiled grimly. Tell them that surrender requests should be directed to people who are capable of surrendering. We're not those people. The ground battle that followed proved her point. Every human settlement had become a fortress. Every civilian had become a combatant. Every piece of equipment had been converted to serve the war effort. The aliens found themselves fighting not just soldiers, but an entire species that had decided to resist. In space, the tide of battle was turning. Human losses were enormous. Entire fleets disappeared in the fury of alien energy weapons. But alien losses were worse. The Zelthani were learning that victory over humanity came at a price they hadn't expected to pay. Admiral, Commander Price reported, alien casualties are approaching critical levels. Their fleet formation is beginning to break up. Kane watched the tactical display. The Zelthani were still fighting, but with desperation rather than confidence. They had come to end human resistance and found themselves trapped in a battle for their own survival. All units, maintain pressure. Don't let them regroup. The final phase of the battle came when Dr. Marcus Ford, freed during a prisoner exchange, delivered a message directly to Ambassador Veltar. Ambassador, you wanted to understand humanity. Here's what you need to know. We're not fighting this war to conquer your people. We're not fighting for territory or resources. We're fighting for a principle that your species seems incapable of understanding. What principle? Veltar asked. The right to be wrong. The right to make our own mistakes. The right to choose our own path, even if that path leads to failure. You offered us safety and protection, but you couldn't offer us freedom. And freedom is the one thing humans will never trade away. The Zelthani fleet began to withdraw, but Admiral Kane wasn't finished. Ambassador Veltar, you came here to teach us about the galaxy. Let us teach you something in return. Her next words were broadcast not just to the alien fleet, but to every inhabited world in the galaxy. To any species listening to this transmission, understand that the age of forced protection is over. The galaxy has room for many different ways of life, but it has no room for anyone who thinks they have the right to choose for others. The war ended not with total victory, but with mutual exhaustion. The Zelthani fleet withdrew to their home territory, their confidence shattered. Humanity had lost millions of people and hundreds of ships, but they had won something more important than military victory. They had won the right to remain human. In the aftermath, as both sides counted their losses, Ambassador Veltar requested one final meeting with Admiral Kane. They met on a neutral station, two leaders trying to understand what the war had really been about. Admiral Kane, Veltar said, the collective's analysis was flawed. We thought we understood your species, but we understood only your weaknesses, not your strengths. What changed your mind? Kane asked. We expected you to weep when faced with impossible odds. You were right that humans weep. We monitored your communications throughout the war. Your people cried for their losses, mourned their dead, grieved for the destruction, but you never stopped fighting. You wept and fought at the same time, Kane nodded. That's what makes us human, Ambassador. We feel everything deeply, pain, loss, love, hope. Those feelings don't make us weak. They make us alive. And living beings fight for the right to keep living on their own terms. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. Never assume that emotion equals weakness. Never mistake compassion for surrender. And never ever underestimate the determination of a species that has learned to find strength in its own tears.